Music has played through the measures of Trinity's history for 150 years. For our 50th anniversary in 1919, Trinity put on a musical pageant. For our centennial in 1969, we performed a musical dramatization of Trinity's first 100 years. In October of 2019, a brand new symphony composed by music professor Brian Bondari was given its world premiere by student and faculty musicians of the Trinity Symphony Orchestra under the direction of Professor Joseph Kinnear. I sat down with Brian and Joe to talk about this historic musical collaboration. Thank you so much for being here today. It is fun to get together. It's our 150th anniversary, and the two of you did something really special. You were able to compose a piece, Trinity, your second symphony, Brian, and Joe, you were able to direct it for the premiere. How do you all feel now that that has happened?
Amazing. It's been really a relief and a load off to know that all that work that was successful is now over. But I'm still kind of on a high from that, and I feel like I'm standing an inch or two taller.
That is great. Congratulations. What about for you, Joe?
I'm so appreciative of how the students and Brian's piece turned out and how they brought this piece to life. It really was such a success, and I think they learned a lot from it, and I think the audience really enjoyed it, and it was a real mountaintop kind of experience.
There was a lot of energy in the room
yes,
for that concert.
Electricity, really, yep.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the story and sort of reconstruct it. What were the origins? How did you get this idea?
Sure. Well, it all started back in fall or August of 2017 during an opening faculty assembly where you, Danny, mentioned that the year 2019 was coming up and that was Trinity's 150th anniversary, and you were putting together a committee to look at ways to help celebrate that anniversary. I happened to be sitting next to Joe in the audience, and I just kind of elbowed him and said, how about I write a piece for the 150th for the orchestra? And he said, love it. And that's how it all began. So like most big ideas, it had a small, humble origin. And to think that I could have been sitting next to whoever, right? I could have been sitting next to our wind ensemble director or the choral director, but the way it happened on that day, I was sitting next to Joe.
Well, it's great. So as you think about what you have done, I know you're inspired by many things. Talk a little bit about Trinity, the movements, and some of the thinking behind what you were trying to communicate.
Sure. Well, the project started small. I was originally going to write a 7 or 8 minute single movement piece. I had a working title of Festive Overture, which is not very original. There are other festive overtures out there, but it was meant to be kind of a high, fast, and loud fanfare kind of a piece to celebrate, the 150th. But the more I thought about it, the more I wanted the project to say more. I wanted it to be bigger because 150th anniversaries don't come around that often, right? And I don't imagine even in my wildest dreams that I'll be around for the 200th anniversary. So I knew this was my chance to do something bigger than I had originally planned. And so I knew that I wanted to write a symphony, and I knew that I wanted to call it Trinity. But what Trinity? I mean, of course, there's the university that played a part of that, but I also wanted it to be about something more as well. And so I was lying in bed one night in 2018, and I started thinking about Aristotle for whatever reason. And I was thinking about his 3 artistic proofs. They're also called the 3 modes of persuasion. They are ethos, pathos, and logos. And I thought, that's my 3 movements. And of course, any self-respecting symphony called Trinity has to have 3 movements, so it all seemed to fit very well with that. And so that's what I came up with for the 3.
So as you think about that, you have a score that you've written and composed, and Joe, you look at it, and you've talked about this, that it was a kind of blueprint. Talk a little bit about taking a blueprint and making it something that's a reality for an audience to be able to interact with. What kind of critical thinking in the performers, the students, went into that?
That's a great question. Any musical score, whether it's a Mozart symphony or a John Williams film score, or a brand new piece, a brand new work, we have the same responsibility to it, which is to interpret what is on the page. What is on the page is an approximation, right? It gives us some parameters as to what dynamics, how loud, soft, what orchestration, who's playing, what kind of length of note, all of these things. But that only goes so far. And beyond that, just like a great straight play or a poem, something that we perform dramatically, we need to interpret what all of those symbols mean, and not only that, but the intention of the composer through those symbols, because they may be a universal language musically, which is great, but each composer has their own language within that and how they use those symbols. And so I had to spend many hours before even that first rehearsal, once he passed it off to me and said, good luck.
Yeah.
And I looked through and said, what does this piece mean architecturally? What does it mean emotionally, psychologically? And then from there, stepping onto the podium and reading it for the first time with the students, which any piece that you read or experience for the first time, even as a listener, I think is exhilarating. You hear something new, you experience something new you've never heard before. In this case, besides a little synthesizer mock-up that was woefully,
inadequate.
Inadequate. This piece had never been heard before. And so for many of the students, this was the first time they had encountered some kind of musical task like this, where you're not listening to an old recording of the Philadelphia Orchestra or somebody playing this piece and you say, well, I'll try to do it as well as that, or do my best. No, this was actually, okay, how are we going to shape this together so that it's the most impactful, it has the right resonance with his intentions and with the audience.
Mm-hmm. So now that you've described this a little bit, the origins and getting ready for it, let's go back and talk about the night, October 19th, when it was premiered. What was it like sitting in the audience when you heard the first notes? How did you experience that?
For me, I was completely at ease, which is not always the case when hearing a world premiere of a work. And that's simply because I had attended a couple of rehearsals. I had been to the dress rehearsal the night before. And I knew that the symphony was in good hands, both from the director's standpoint and from hearing the students perform. I was not nervous at all that the piece was going to fall on its face and crash and burn. And so I got to sit back and actually enjoy it, which is a rare pleasure for a composer. I wasn't thinking about the next passage and will that part come together, will that modulation happen, and so forth. But no, I was enjoying it I felt like another member of the audience, and for me, that was a real treat.
That is wonderful. So Joe, you were on the stage with the students helping make it happen. The first time that you're going to do the entire symphony before an audience, talk a little bit more about what do students feel when they're in that situation? What are you thinking about as a conductor?
So any performance requires a significant amount of rehearsal and thought and preparation, physical, psychological, to do in a confident way, a convincing way. But a new piece, the added element of the audience, having never heard it, and that anticipation, that electricity in the audience. Yeah. By the way, people clapped in between the movements.
They did.
Which was great. I mean, I know sometimes that protocol is
I don't mind it at all.
Especially think about Beethoven or any great composer of the Western canon. His works were applauded, even encored right after. So we want to hear that movement again, it was so good. And that's the kind of spirit that a new piece needs. And I think the students, I was so proud of and admired what they were able to do and bring such poise to the piece in a moment of, it's high pressure to be able to present this thing in the best light. And they did so beautifully that way. But there is something, we've only had a few times with it, and to perform it, there's always the little things that happen, and so how do you navigate that? But they did beautifully, and the audience was a wonderful, appreciative audience. We had a live stream, of course, in a classroom down the hall. My colleague, Kimberlyn Monfort, was saying, they were clapping too, and they said, oh, wait, we're not in the hall, but it's okay, we're going to clap anyway.
That was the first time we had a live stream of a concert, I believe.
Besides the Christmas concert.
Besides the Christmas concert, right. And the hall was full by 7 o'clock for a 7:30 performance. So we had a lot of people wanting to come, and we had an overflow of 40 or 50 people in a classroom with a projector.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to say too, I had thought about this the other day. I had another colleague from outside of the department said, I love this. I love this symphony. And I was surprised. And I said, why? He said, I thought it was going to be some serious, dark, impenetrable piece, that's going to explore the depths of Trinity, but it was just a wonderful, it's not that it didn't have depth, of course it did, but it had an accessibility.
Right.
It
was an approachable work.
It was an approachable work. There were some very lyrical cinematic elements even and structures that were really lovely that I think the audience really gravitated towards immediately.
And that was a big challenge. I knew that I had to write a piece of music that was going to be a lot larger than what I had originally designed. And I had to also write a piece that would fit the members of the orchestra that we have. And in our orchestra, this is one of the things I love about a liberal arts university, is that if you look at the roster of any of our ensembles, you don't see music major, music major, music major. You see representation from nearly every discipline on campus. And we're still able to create this high quality of works as we do, given that setting. But I had to craft a piece that I knew would fit the ensemble that Joe had for the semester, and also that had enough appeal that it would be memorable and worthy of 150th anniversary and not scare everyone away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, you make me so proud in so many ways of what you do. I just can't thank you enough for having composed and having conducted the premiere. It is wonderful. But the other part of this is clearly a work of collaboration.
Absolutely.
You work together to create a moment that will be remembered by people in a certain way. And collaboration is about creativity too. Can you talk a little bit about, as musicians, composer, conductor, what is collaboration and how can we use that as a way to think about liberal arts and what we do at Trinity?
Sure, I'll start. In our case, we have a symbiotic relationship, and what I do wouldn't be possible or would have no meaning whatsoever if it weren't for someone like Joe. The composer is the dreamer. The composer is the conjurer of melody, of harmony, of rhythm, and of texture, but it is the maestro who brings that to life. And Joe and I had not constant communication because I was away holed up in my cave doing a lot of writing, but every chance I had, I would be in contact with Joe. I'd sent him drafts, very early drafts of the work, and he would come over to my house or we would meet somewhere and we would look over the score, he would make suggestions, and I would take these into account, and it might have been something like the key here needs to be different, or he looked a lot at the bowings of the strings because he's a string player and he does that far better than I do. But the piece would not have been as successful and it would not have come to life at all if it weren't for Joe.
Well, on the flip side, the piece there would be no sound, there would be no actual successful performance without this new creative work. And it's a testament to Brian that he took those suggestions. I mean, collaborate means to actually listen to someone else and to learn from that, not just kind of give it lip service. And I mean, we all know of instances of people in various disciplines who don't really listen and have very specific, passionate ideas, but do not engage in that kind of playing off of ideas. And I think that Brian is a master of that, in that he's able to adjust and work with the forces we had, the understanding of what would work best, and he was open to all of those things. And so as we move forward in this process, it was one of the easiest for me in my career thus far to work with a composer in terms of bringing it to life.
I love the way that you suggested the terms of being the dreamer and the maestro who makes it happen. That partnership is really wonderful. You know, music plays a big role at Trinity. Many of our events that bring us together as a community are musical. It is very interesting that some people may think about being an audience member as being a kind of passive event, but it's not. You're very engaged and present and connecting with everyone there. And so music has been an important part of the past of Trinity. Do you have ideas about what role music may play in our future?
Well, you're right that music has been an important part of our past. Since 1869, music has been there with us from the beginning. The music department was one of the first departments we had at Trinity. and it has played an integral role in our campus from the beginning. And regarding the future, I certainly can't imagine a future at Trinity without music. I mean, one testament to the success that we've had and that I hope we continue to have is if you look at campus participation in, say, the Christmas concert or in any of our ensembles, it's usually a consistent 20 to 25% of the student body participates in the music department in any given year, whether it's through lessons or ensembles or whatever it may be. Classes, exactly.
Comes to lectures, comes to
right.
everything, yeah.
And I certainly don't see that diminishing at any point.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
Well, just congratulations on such a wonderful event. The things that the two of you have done to help us celebrate our 150th anniversary, it's phenomenal. Congratulations, Brian,
Thank you.
on the wonderful composition. Congratulations, Joe, on a phenomenal concert. And thank you for spending time to help me sort of recapture a little bit of the story of this evening and share it with all of our alumni, our friends, and the families who care so much about Trinity. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
President Anderson. Yeah.
Along with the echo of the tower bells, the chords of the alma mater, and the spirit of the fight song, I am excited to add the melodies of the Trinity Symphony to my list of sounds that remind me of this university. When you close your eyes and imagine them, what melodies bring you back home to campus? Share your stories with me. I truly enjoy hearing from the Trinity community. Together, with Forte and Crescendo, we will accelerate what's next for Trinity. We are a force in motion.